What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for my second video of the day, Married at First Sight, Season 19, Episode 5, Trouble in Paradise. So, y'all, I was trying to figure out how am I going to do Married at First Sight. I thought I was going to be a trooper and watch all the episodes that they release on Thursday night on the Peacock Network, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It's just too much. So, what I decided to do instead is to watch one episode at a time, do the review, and then a couple of days later watch the other episode and do a review on that, but to get them all out before the next batch is released next Thursday. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I think that's going to be a whole lot better. I don't want to sit up here and talk for an entire hour, even though I just did that with my Love is Blind review. I don't want to sit here and talk for an entire hour about, 3 or 4 episodes. It's just going to be way too much work and take up way too much of everybody's time. And it's just a damn show. I don't have to kill myself over it. Also, I was trying to figure out exactly why they decided to move Married at First Sight to a streaming network. And I figured that maybe it's because they can make more money doing that. Because when it's on a regular network, people can record it and then watch it later and just fast forward through all the commercials. But on a streaming service, if you don't pay for the premium version where you can get it without ads, you're forced to watch the ads because you can't record a show on a streaming network, I don't think. So that you can watch it later and fast forward through the commercials. So you're forced to watch all of these damn ads. And because you're forced to watch it, I'm assuming um, the advertising companies are charging a lot more. And so it's just more money for them, but it's very torturous for the rest of us. But that's how we're able to watch it for free, I guess. I don't know. So moving on from there, let's get into the nitty gritty. Season 19, episode 5, let's start off with Britney and Will. So, the more I'm getting to know Will, the more I'm beginning to see that he's a very strange person. He's very weird. And it explains a lot why a good looking guy like him, who is seemingly accomplished, can't find love, can't find a long lasting partnership because he's weird. He's just very strange. The way he communicates is very condescending, and he has a way of talking that makes you feel like you're stupid or like gaslighting you, right? You know you're right, but he makes you feel like you might be wrong because just of the way and the tone that he uses when he talks to Brittany. And yeah, he's very strange. Their communication styles are very different. Hers is normal, his is abnormal. So last week we saw them sitting, talking on the balcony about how they're just not really communicating well. They're not really understanding each other. He's like frustrated with her because when she's asking him a question, it's not specific enough for him. So she will ask a very normal question like, "What do you like to do?" And he doesn't know where she's coming from. He's like so confused. He doesn't know if it's to give his whole entire life story or just talk about what he liked to do yesterday or what does he like to do in general. Like he has no idea what's going on. And it's a very normal and simple question to open up the door to conversation and to getting to know each other better, but he's acting very obtuse. So after their communication breakdown, he did attempt to make amends. Later on that night, when they were getting ready for bed, he wanted to talk about it, which is a good sign because some people are like, "Okay, we had an argument. I'm going to shut down." But he was like, "No, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened." And it was an attempt for him to smooth things over, to make up with her, and I guess it kind of worked. Um, After that, I think it was the next day, they went out with the rest of the couples out on a catamaran. Everybody had a great time. Will and Brittany seemed to be back on track again. They were spending time together. They were getting romantic. We saw them kiss. And you would think that things were looking on the up and up. Things even got a little bit better when they went to explore. They went on a, what do they call it? Whatever they call it. They went on an expedition or whatever to explore some ancient ruins of the land. And there's like, castles that have been there for, I don't know, thousands of years. So they went to go do that. They had a great time. They were talking, they were communicating a whole lot better. They were holding hands. So they climb into one of the ruined castles and they climb all the way up to the top. And Brittany talked about how it was always been like a fantasy of hers to be like on the top of a castle with her man and to get romantic and to start kissing. And so he turns her around and like he positions her head so that he can kiss her, and they kiss. And it was very romantic and very natural and genuine. And the kiss lasted for a long time. And I was just like cheesing the whole entire throughout the whole entire scene. I was smiling so hard because I was like, wow, things are finally getting better. But this is Married at First Sight. And we all know that anything good is very short lived. So the next time that we see them, they're back at the resort. And let's just talk about Will's attire, what he was wearing, real quick. So when we first saw Will, he wasn't wearing any earrings, nothing wrong with that. He was, no earrings. Whatever. He was looking very whatever. Then after they got married, and I think when they went on their honeymoon, when they first arrived in Panama, I think he was wearing one earring. Now, in this particular scene, when they came back to the resort after they were done exploring the ruins, he had on two dangling earrings and he had on a lacy pink shirt. So I'm not making any judgments. I'm not making any allegations or assumptions or anything like that. I'm just making an observation on how different he looks now than what he looked like when we first met Will. That's all I'm saying. No issue with the man wearing pink. In fact, pink can look very, very attractive on people who have like darker skin. It can look so good on darker skin tones. So yeah, the pink, he was working that pink, and maybe he needed the lace because it's very hot in Panama, and it was a better way to stay cool. Fine. I'm just making an observation and we're going to move on from that. So we're back to issues once again with Will and Britney. They're talking about intimacy. And Will is basically not comfortable with pursuing that part of their relationship after what happened the first time that they were intimate with each other. Because after the first time, it seemed like, according to Will, that when they were done, Britney regretted doing it. Maybe she felt like they're moving too fast. Now, when we first saw that episode where they had been intimate and then there was some type of issue the following morning and they were talking about it, I thought that they didn't take precautions and they were worried about a possible pregnancy. That's what I thought. But it had nothing to do with that at all. It was one of them or both of them regretted doing it, period. And from that initial conversation that we saw last week, it seemed like, I don't know, it seemed like Britney was, it seemed like he was the one that regretted doing it and it made her feel bad. That's what it seemed like in that conversation. But now in this week's conversation, in episode 5, Will says, well, you regretted it. And so I decided to take a step back to respect your boundaries. And I'm not comfortable doing it again with you because I'm still respecting your boundaries. I'm looking out for you. And she's talking about how she feels rejected because he won't be intimate with her again. Okay. So I don't know if we're missing some information. We're not privy to certain conversations that they've had, but they didn't have it on camera. I don't know what's going on. But he's making it seem like she must have forgotten that she was the one that regretted us doing it the first time. And she wanted to, pause on that. And so I'm just respecting that. So she must have forgotten that whole entire scenario. Whereas she's saying she wants to move forward with intimacy. If she had an issue with it before, which I don't think she did, but if she had an issue with it before, she doesn't have an issue with it now and she wants to do it again. And he told her no, because I'm still respecting you. But then that's where it gets even more confusing, because if she's saying, hey, I'm ready to go, whatever happened before, let bygones be bygones, let's try this again. And he's like, no, 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 pump the brakes on that. We're not going to do that because you had an issue with it before. And so I'm just respecting you now. It's very confusing. I feel like I don't really understand exactly what's going on between Will and Britney regarding that. So if she's ready to move on, why isn't he? It seems weird that he's like still stuck on her wanting boundaries, but now she doesn't want boundaries. And he's like, no, no, no. Remember you said you wanted boundaries. So he's the one that really wants the boundaries. It seems like he's the one that really doesn't want to go down that road again. And he's going to project that on her. That's what it seems like. But she was really frustrated. She was very, very frustrated about that. And she told him, a wife does not want to hear her husband say that he doesn't want to be intimate with her. So that told me that she was giving him the green light, the go ahead, let's do it, let's get down and dirty. And he's the one that's pumping the brakes on it happening again. That's what it seems like to me. So I don't know what's going on. If you were willing to do it the first time, why aren't you willing to do it the second time? Like, I don't understand. But let's move on to Belinda and Chad. And I kind of have to go fast because I know my battery's about to die. So, Belinda and Chad. Belinda and Chad. Yeah, let's talk about Belinda and Chad. So, Belinda is the mother of Jaylen. And there was a short scene with Jaylen and Josh where Jaylen, well, it wasn't short, it was a pretty long scene, where Jaylen was telling Josh about her childhood. And she was telling Josh that her parents never showed affection towards one another in front of their children. So that kind of like affected her because she says, I don't want to have a marriage like my parents. I want us to be very affectionate in front of our kids because I want them to see a loving and healthy relationship. And I want it to be to the point where our kids are telling us, go, get a room. So she didn't see Belinda and her dad be affectionate with one another. So I was wondering if this is going to be an issue in Belinda and Chad's relationship. Well, coming to find out, Belinda tells Chad she wants all the affection. So give it to her. She wants to be affectionate. She has no issues with that. She is cool with it. So she wants to be affectionate with him, despite her not being affectionate with Jaylen's dad. Okay. So they're having dinner. They're talking about how well everything has progressed so far. She's telling him that she feels really good about him and that she can definitely see them having a future together. So she's feeling very optimistic about their relationship. And so when he is trying to explain how he feels, he tells her, you make me feel whatever he said, you make me feel, I don't know, comfortable or something. So he starts to explain how he's feeling about the relationship so far. But for whatever reason, he hits a roadblock and he completely stops talking. And he's just kind of sitting there. And I guess he was trying to get his words together, but maybe it was taking a little bit too long. So one of the producers interjected and was trying to help him. And they were like, well, tell us, Chad, tell us how she makes you feel. And he got upset. And he rolled his eyes at the producer and he was like, give me a minute. Okay. Can you just give me a minute? And then it was more uncomfortable silence. And then Belinda was getting uncomfortable, visibly uncomfortable. And then nobody was talking. Nobody said anything. We're all waiting for Chad to continue. And I guess the mood was ruined, completely ruined, because he was like, you know what? What did he say? Did I write it down? He was basically like, y'all just really messed it up, or whatever he said to them. Basically, like, forget about it now. Y'all just ruined the whole entire moment for me. Just forget about it. So then he gets up and they walk. They walk away. And the whole thing was really awkward. And so later on, okay, before we go on to later on, let's just talk about that moment. For him to act like that, for him to get that frustrated, Um, it showed because most of the time Chad is extremely jokey. He's constantly cracking jokes, lightening the mood. It was to the point where Belinda was kind of getting frustrated with him because she was like, "Man, do you ever turn off? Like, where is your off switch?" So to see him get so frustrated over something so minor, it was concerning. It was very concerning. Like if he's put in an uncomfortable situation, does he get like this? Does he get angry? Does he react in this way because he's uncomfortable or because he's unsure about himself or about something else? Is this what we're gonna get if he's ever put on the spot? Because this is not good. You need to know how to conduct yourself under pressure or when you're being put on the spot, and you don't react with anger. Like the producer was just doing their job. They have to still conduct a scene. Okay, this is a television show after all, so they got to kind of keep things moving. And we're losing daylight, or maybe it was already nighttime, I don't know. But it's like, hey, we got things to do, we got to move on. We can't sit here forever waiting for you to find your words. So I was a little bit concerned that he reacted that way. And so was Belinda, because later on, when they were getting ready for bed, Belinda was very affected by what happened. And he saw that. And she told him how she didn't like how he was disrespectful. And he was like, but I wasn't disrespectful to you. I was like, Chad, please, you can't be this. No. Chad, you know exactly what you did. You know exactly what you did. He's like, well, I wasn't being disrespectful to you. And she's like, well, I know, but I don't want you to be disrespectful to others either, especially, you know, when I'm there with you, because it puts me in a really uncomfortable spot as well. And so he did apologize. And he says, well, I wasn't being disrespectful. I was just trying to express my frustration. Why do you have to express your frustration? This is you're shooting a scene. Like, why do you have to express your, why are you frustrated that they were trying to help you? You know, and if you were frustrated, don't you know how to hide that, how to cover that up and not, you know, react so outwardly? Because later on, when you're in the privacy of your resort, you can tell, oh my God, that producer really gets on my nerves, you know, trying to tell me to move it along and whatever. But at the moment, you know, you kind of have to keep your composure. So he did apologize to Belinda, and then Belinda started to cry. And he looks at her like really confused, not understanding why she was crying. And she says something about, okay, she did say something like, you know, when she gets upset, she doesn't get over things quickly. You know, it kind of like stays within her. And so she just wanted to sleep on it. And he was like, okay, you know, that's fine. That's when she started crying. And he wanted to know why she was crying. And she said that, I'm scared to stand up for myself because I don't want you to resent me later for that, for me standing up for myself. I don't want you to get mad at me because I'm trying to stand up for myself, you know, to him, right? She's trying to stand up for herself to him. And so she's scared of how he's going to react later. He might not like that. And it makes me really wonder, what did Belinda go through in her previous marriage with Jaylen's dad? Was she scared to stand up for herself? You know, like what the hell was going on there? So he did the right thing, and he was like, you should never feel that way. I'm always going to be your safe place. I'm not going to get upset because you're standing up for yourself. It's not like that with us. You know, it'll never be like that. So he did give her words of assurance. He did try to comfort her and reassure her that he would never be upset with her for standing up for herself. And he did take accountability for his actions with the producer. He did apologize for that. So then they kissed and they made up, and, you know, hopefully everything went well for the rest of the night. But that was very insightful. And this is why I like to see mature couples on these type of shows, because they communicate. Because Chad and Belinda and Rhonda and Pat talk a lot. Whereas the younger couples, they're struggling with communication. The older couples are having conversations left and right. Okay, they may be uncomfortable conversations. One of them may not like it, but they're having conversations left and right. So I did like that scene with Belinda and Chad, because they were having a conversation about what happened, both of them expressing how they felt and trying to come to a resolution. And let's talk about Pat and Rhonda. So we find out that Pat, his relationship ended 3 years prior, and now 6 months later, he's married. He's on Married at First Sight. So Rhonda questions if he was ready to jump into a marriage after ending a long-term relationship like that and having a very little break in between. So when they're on the catamaran with the other couples, did y'all see Pat, how he like somersaulted into the water? I mean, Grandpa was doing it. He did a like a crazy flip into the water. That was like remarkable. So moving on from there, there's a scene of them having drinks, just the two of them together, and they're talking about how recently Pat was in a relationship. So when he initially told Rhonda that, and I don't remember if that was on camera or what, but when he initially told Rhonda that he had just ended a 3 year relationship, Rhonda was very concerned, and she was feeling, I guess, a little bit insecure about their relationship because she's wondering if he's ready to be in a commitment as big as this. And so she had put up a wall, not really to distance herself from Pat, but to kind of process things. And so she told him, yeah, when you told me that you just came out of a long-term relationship, you know, I had to put up a wall, but it wasn't because I'm trying to separate myself from you. I just needed time to process everything. Well, he said that her reaction made him feel like he was being judged by her, that she was being overly critical about him jumping into this process after ending a long-term relationship. So he felt kind of judged. And then she said that she feels smothered by him because she's been on her own for a very long time. Her her prior relationship ended much like years and years ago. And so she's not used to a man being all up on her. And because he just came out of a relationship, he's still in relationship mode. So he likes all the cuddling, the canoodling, the PDA or whatever. And for her, it's a little bit too much. So she's telling him that she feels a little bit smothered. She tells him that there are going to be moments where she wants to be alone, where she's going to need her alone time. And he's like, hey, I'm good with that. That's fine with me. Ain't no problems there. So they move on from there. They're back in their room and things are winding down now with the honeymoon. People are getting ready to go back home to Austin, I believe. So Pat and Rhonda are having a conversation about what to expect when they move in together in Austin. And Rhonda says that she hasn't lived with anyone in over 20 years. And he hasn't lived with anyone in about 5 years. So Rhonda stresses to him that she's going to need her space. Okay, she needs to feel independent. There's going to be times when she needs to be completely on her own. And she says that she wants them to have their separate lives, and she understands as a married couple they're going to have a life together, but she really needs him to understand that she's going to want to be a little bit independent in this marriage. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because we all know that in any kind of relationship or dynamic, whether it's a friendship, a marriage, or whatever, people need their space at times. We can't be attached to the hip all the time. Some people, that's cool. They can be that codependent, no issue. But for a lot of other people, once in a while, they need to breathe. So she talks about how she's trying to make it as clear as possible to him. There's going to be times where I need you to get the hell away from me. Okay. And don't take it personally. It's just that I'm not used to having another person around me all the time. So, like I said, I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to pass judgment on that. But, girl, you are in a marriage. So it just depends on how much space she needs. Okay. If she wants to be alone 80% of the time, we're going to have a problem. But if it's just now and then, totally understandable and healthy for their marriage as well. Let's move on to Megan and Derek. So while they're paddleboarding, this was last week, I think, when they were paddleboarding, Derek had expressed to Megan that he wants her to be more interested in him and his life. He tells her, you don't ask me enough questions. And last week we did see that very uncomfortable, I don't know what it was, breakfast or lunch that they were having. And he was trying to like ask her all these questions about herself. And he was hoping that there would be some follow-up questions to him. And she wasn't interested. She wasn't interested. Like, he would ask her a question and she would answer, and then she would look at the water. Like, she wouldn't even turn and like ask him anything or expound any more than her answer, go beyond her answer, her little short answer. So he was struggling with that. And so he told her, look, I need you to show a little bit more interest in my life, like the way I'm showing in yours. For whatever reason, Megan flipped out. She was like, I'm the one that's not asking you questions, but you are. I don't know why she was confused about that, because we saw it on camera. We saw it, Megan. You were not asking him a damn thing. He was asking you everything. And then after she would give her answer, there'd be dead silence. And then if he wouldn't have spoken again, they would never have spoken for the rest of the meal. So I don't know why she was confused. She said that she was feeling ambushed. I'm like, oh my God, girl, please save me. No, no, ma'am. We're not going to play this victim role. She says that, oh, I felt so ambushed by him and I just needed to get away. Get away from what? He's just letting you know that he doesn't feel like you're taking any kind of interest in him. On the ride back to the resort from the paddleboarding, it was dead silence. When they got to their destination, she hopped on out of there. She didn't wait for him. She didn't look back, went straight into the room, left him behind. I felt like she was overreacting. Well, they must have talked that night or early the next morning. We didn't see it, but the next time that we saw them the following morning, they were back on good terms. Everything was hunky dory again. They said that they talked about it, they smoothed everything over, everything is wonderful again. So they lay down on the hammock together. So they're like all nice and close and snuggled up. They're kissing, they're canoodling, they're playing a Q&A game. And in the Q&A game, one of the question was something about children. And so she asked him, does he want children? He was like, yes, I do. Maybe 2 or 3. Then she talked about how she has fears of giving birth, and they talk about that. So I guess, I'm pretty sure she wants children as well. We'll find out as the season progresses. But it seems like they might be on the same page regarding children, but I'm not exactly sure about Megan. Um, I think that was it. They had a great time on the catamaran. Everything was fun on the catamaran. Let's get into our lovebirds, Josh and Jaylen. So when we see Josh and Jaylen, um, it got interesting for me when they were on the catamaran. And Jaylen told the entire group, told the other couples, that Josh told her that he was falling in love with her. And Jaylen tells us that Josh is everything she could ever want. So they seem to be really good. But our experience, or my experience, I can't speak for nobody else, but my experience in watching Married at First Sight, the couples that start off this strong, it turns real ugly later on. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're just, harping too much on unrealistic expectations in one another. I did take note that he said he was already falling in love with her. Is it possible to fall in love with somebody in a week? Hell yeah, it's possible. But it's just not, the probability isn't that high. I can see that there's a strong attraction between them, even though I have my reservations. And I did say last week that I think that maybe, Josh is a little bit coming across to me that I'm not saying that he's like, he knows that he's gay and he wants men and he's just leading her along. No, I'm not saying that at all. That maybe he's not clear himself with his sexuality. I don't know. And I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. It really doesn't matter. So I just was like, I just took note that he's saying that he's already falling in love with her. And I don't know if that's a red flag or a pink flag. I don't know if it's like a little flag or a big flag. I don't really know. But there's something about that. Just, I'm like, I just want her to be a little bit cautious. Um, like I said, the attraction between them is hella strong. Okay, hella strong. So they talk about, there's a scene where they're sitting by the pool and they're talking about their backgrounds. He talks about growing up poor. He wasn't able to play sports, and so he would explore a lot as a kid. Jaylen said that she grew up in privilege. They were always at the toy store. They're having big, extravagant birthday parties. So she grew up with a lot of privilege. Jaylen feels insecure about not finishing college. That's an insecurity for her. He never even went to college, but they both decided that they want to encourage their own children to go to school. If they don't, that's fine, but they definitely would like to see their kids go to school. This is where she talks about the affection thing, where she says her parents never showed affection around the kids, and she wants to be the opposite of that. She does want to be affectionate with her husband in front of their children, of course, within reason, but she doesn't want to feel like they have to hide or they just don't hug and kiss. They want to show their children that they have a very healthy marriage, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, that's that. I don't have anything else to say, and I'm going to end it here because my battery's about to die. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please do not forget to rate the video. If you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.